Welcome back to another episode of Inside Mentors Minds, where we dive deep into epic humans to find out what got them to where they are today, their tips, their tricks, and a little bit more of what is inside their mindset in order for them to perform at the levels they're performing at. Today, we have a special guest on. Kyle, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you for having me, Matt. I'm looking forward to having a really fruitful discussion with you.
Appreciate it. So for anyone that's coming across you for the first time, for the listeners or viewers, you want to give a little bit of a foundation of who Kyle is and the work you do?
Okay, so Kyle is a guy who I consider myself like always been the underdog. Okay, so I grew up in really adverse conditions, obviously subjective in a sense, but I grew up in or on the Cape Flats. And for any of the listeners who are familiar with the Cape Flats, it's one of the most notorious cities in the world with the highest murder rate. So that is just to paint a little picture of where I grew up. So the fact that finishing school was an achievement for me. Then going off to university was an achievement. So it's like I've always been one of the first out of my peers to even go ahead and do something like that. So that was always something where I always just drive. I was always driven to achieve a little bit more. And that set the basis for me because I didn't want to see myself falling victim to the lifestyle of the people who I was surrounded with. I saw many of my peers falling victim to crime, substance abuse, and just, you know what, having no hope for tomorrow. And that's not something that I wanted. I grew up in a difficult situation, but I had awesome parents who tried their best to give me and my sister everything that they could. And because they always sowed that seed that anything is possible, you just need to do the work, I made it my duty to rise to the best of my ability, to become the best that I could. So it's been an amazing journey, amazing ride. Many times, lots of falls, lots of lessons, but the cornerstone of everything is a relentless pursuit of excellence. Always trying to find what is it going to take for me to rise up, to go to the next level, to learn. And yeah, in a nutshell, that is me. So I finished university at about 23. Started out in the counseling space as a counselor. I worked in NGOs and community organizations, working with people on the Cape Flats, drug addicts, people involved in gangsterism, but the very dark side of life, you know. And eventually, my wife and I got married in our later 20s. I got involved in fitness. We decided to move over here to Thailand and explore Thailand. And this also gave me a new understanding of, you know, life outside of Cape Town, outside of South Africa. And from that point, I just continued to pivot and grow. And today I work with, I would say, I help people become their best, become great. So I work with lots of professional athletes, footballers. I work with entrepreneurs. I work with leaders, with anybody who is on the pursuit of excellence, who's on their path of attaining their version of impossible, something that seems unattainable to them right now and everybody around them, but who knows, listen, yeah, I'm here for a reason and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get there. So that's basically me in a nutshell.
Man, I love it. And that is so inspiring. Congratulations on all your success and getting out of
Thanks,
those
man.
odds.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, if in my experience of reading, being around, and talking to anyone of any sort of greatness, there's usually like a very dark period or a dark
Mm-hmm.
time. Is this
Mm-hmm.
something you experienced? And then what was it and how'd you get through it?
So
If you
I've
feel
had
like sharing.
many times, I've experienced many dark times or difficult times, but this one that I would say was a catalyst for the change, the person who I became, because I haven't always had the perception of life or the perception of who I could become. I always wanted things to be easy. I thought, okay, I put in the work and things should come to me easily. So I'll give you a little background. So after finishing my undergrad, I studied psychology. I was like, you know what? First of all, against all odds, I managed to finish school, then go ahead, get a university degree. So you like, oh, you're looking at this milestone. Once you get it, your circumstances will be changed. But I found myself being depressed, unemployed, living with my parents, with a bachelor's degree. I did not even want to attend my graduation, right? I did not attend it, to be frank. My parents were like, oh, we have to go. It's like something that's obviously, it's an amazing achievement. Like I told you, where I come from. So my sister was the first person from our family to actually graduate from university. I was the second. But I just thought, no, there's no ways I'm going. I was in a dark place. And I was about 20, maybe 21, 22. I think about 22 at that time. And I was just trying, I was trying to find jobs. But South Africa has a very high unemployment rate. I think it was back then easily 30%. And it was really difficult. Trying, but not getting anywhere. Eventually, I applied for so many jobs. I then got offered a scholarship to do a postgrad in, I think it was computer programming of some sort. And I was like, wow, this sounds like an amazing opportunity because after the 1 year scholarship, it's a paid scholarship, I would then have a job by the company. So it just guaranteed a job. So I was like, wow, this sounds awesome. And this is basically one of the events that shaped my perspective of what I can do. So I went out to this particular day, this event. We had to all do a pitch on why we think we deserve to be part of this scholarship. So this company was offering, this organization was offering a paid ride at university, okay, for postgrad certificate in the IT field. And they were pairing us up with like major corporations in South Africa to go and work in the afternoons. So we work in the afternoons, we get paid. After the 1 year, we also full-time work at the company. So it was an amazing opportunity. And there was only 30 of us who were shortlisted out of thousands. Excited. I needed to do a 1-minute pitch. I went in, in the auditorium, I stood there. There was about 30 executives, okay? So one for each person. And you basically have to pitch why you want to be on it. And they would say, okay, I want to take him or her to be on part of my team. Wow, I stuttered. I could not get the word out. I froze. I just went blank. And I mean, for 1 minute, all I need to speak is for 1 minute. They eventually were like, Carl, it's fine. Maybe we ask some questions. They asked questions I still could not answer. Eventually, they were like, okay, fine. I spoke to the organizers. They were like, unfortunately, out of the 30 people, there were only 3 people who did not make it on board, were not awarded the scholarship, solely because they could not present themselves or pitch themselves for why they deserve to be part of this, okay? We were already pre-accepted. And it was just about us standing there and saying, okay, I want to for this reason. So you can imagine, I was already at a dark place. Now I'm like, this perfect opportunity and everything. Yeah, so just another knock. And that particular day, I remember I was driving home and I was going to my sister's place and I was just like, wow, life, feeling so sorry for myself. And I went over to my sister's place and I arrived there. I spoke to her. She was like, I'm really sorry and all these things. And then she was like, okay, a few moments later, she was like, Kyle, you want to go and sweep the porch? Because we have guests coming over. And it's her husband's birthday. So they're having guests coming over for dinner and it's her husband's birthday. And I was like, okay. And I went out and I was like, how could she ask me after knowing that I had just faced my umpteenth rejection, okay? And I'm at the lowest of the lowest. And she's somebody who really loves me, cares for me. Yet she made this request. So I was confused, but anyway, I followed through. And while I was sweeping that particular moment, I started thinking, why did this happen? And I think that's also the light that a new insight that I got that's really been really important to me is reflecting back. Because in that moment, I was trying to reflect why she did what she did, okay? And then I realized, you know what, at the end of the day, people can love you, people can want the best for you. But at the end of the day, the onus rests on you. It's your responsibility. No matter the results that you're getting, it's your responsibility to show up, okay? To be prepared to do your best. If you don't get the results, you find out why did you not get it and try again. So that moment became my learning lesson where I was like, you know what, it's my responsibility, nobody else's. Yes, I got rejected because I could not speak, but I'm going to do something about this. And then I basically went down a path of me saying, you know what, I'm going to become a great public speaker. Because I realized in that moment, I'm afraid of public speaking. Mm-hmm. And I just went hard at it. I went hard at developing myself. Okay. And I can proudly say today that I'm a competent speaker, competent communicator. I've given a TEDx talk. So I've achieved amazing feats since that time. And that was maybe 7 years ago, okay? 6 years ago. So that's in a nutshell, one of the dark places that I've been in and how I transferred that and allowed that to become a fuel to push me.
That's amazing, man. I really appreciate that. It's, sometimes these moments in life really help us. There are these dark times,
Yes.
and it's not until we come to the other side to realize, like, wow, that was a really great moment. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it does take some time to get through that. So if someone comes to you in these dark moments,
Mm-hmm.
or these blocks, what are their common blocks that they come to you with, and then what do you share with them to solve the blocks?
You see, it's always, it depends on the individual, okay, what their particular challenge is. And at the end of the day, we all face challenges, right? So it's about what is the challenge that they presented with, and what are the common challenges that people face, whether they are high achievers, right, or people who haven't achieved any, as understoned by belief, right? That is the cause of it. People lacking the sense of, I'm able to do this, I'm able to show up, I'm able to accomplish this. And that stems back from their story, the narrative, okay, that they've created about who they are and what they're capable of. So I usually work with my clients to identify what is that stopping them, right? Then looking at, okay, why and where does it stem from? What is the story behind that? Because we operate by stories. Our identity is nothing but a story that we've created in our mind, okay? A story about how we relate to the world and how we expect the world to relate to us. And if we want to achieve at the highest level possible, it's about us recreating the story, creating an empowering story of who we are, of us being the champions, of us being the conquerors. And not simply just creating a story, but showing up, okay, and actually living that story, saying, okay, you know what? So if I want to be a conqueror, if I want to be the hero of my story, what do I have to do to become the hero? Yeah.
It's
So it's
it's
also
so
following through with
true.
action. Mm-hmm.
So let's say that I find out that I have a story that's not serving me. So the first step is to become aware of that story. Now that I
Mm-hmm.
found out that I have this story running me, how do I start to change that story, change that narrative?
To change the narrative, it depends. So obviously I'll set up unique exercises depending on what it is that you're struggling with. But to change your narrative, there are many ways. Like you said, the first step in any change is becoming aware of it, right? Because we can't change something that we're not aware there's a problem. Okay, so if we're not aware there's a problem, we can't consciously change something
Mm-hmm.
or intentionally change it. So the fact that you've already identified there is a problem, you're already halfway there. That means you've already achieved a sense of awareness. Now it's about, okay, how do you overcome this problem? How do you conquer this problem? Okay, so if you realize that, oh, let's say, you know what, my belief is not there in order for me to lose weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because belief is critical in every single thing. People think it's simply just a plan and taking action. No, people sabotage themselves because they lack the belief. That's why there's people who's been struggling for years and years and years to lose weight, right? But they don't get there. Why? Now, it stems to the belief. What's the belief that glues together everything? So if we look back at it and say, you know what, this person lacks that certainty that I'm going to achieve this. It's more tentative. Okay, I'm going to try. Okay, so basically, in essence, it depends on what a particular block is or what a particular story is, the narrative, and then trying to align activities that helps that individual challenge that. Because all you want to do is challenge that story to make that individual realize that this is not the reality, that this belief maybe served me at a particular time, but it doesn't serve me anymore. Yeah,
Okay.
so
So
mhm,
let's keep carrying this example through the weight loss. Like, so
mhm,
they've become aware of that narrative that's running them in the weight loss, but they're
mhm,
looking to create that, essentially, that new identity, shift from that
mhm.
belief that the narrative that is holding them back. What are some things that someone can do now to take those actions to become that new narrative?
Okay, so the only way you can actually create a new narrative, so a true narrative, eh? We're not being delusional yet. Because some people, they use affirmations, for example, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm strong, I conquer. But when it comes time to show up, they don't. Okay, so it's about our affirmations. Okay, it becomes a blueprint for our action. Okay, so it goes hand in hand. Our narrative, right, the story we're telling ourselves, is backed up by our daily action.
Ah,
So it's not only the one part, okay? Because some people think that, we have the secret, I think it came out in 2008, 2009, or 2007, very popular. Many people believe in this, right? And it's really amazing because visualization is important, okay? Manifesting is important. The words we say is important. But people forget an important element to that. It's the action that we take, okay? We don't just sit down and say, oh, I want $1 million in my account. Oh, I want the perfect husband or the perfect wife. No, we say that and we go follow through. What do I have to do to go make that money? What do I have to do to find the perfect partner? What do I have to do to find the perfect body or get the perfect body? So action is important. So when the individual is trying to lose the weight, you can say, okay, you know what? The belief lacked, okay? So how do we start building the belief? We start building the belief through the action that individual takes, showing that individual, challenging that individual, like through the exercises, because maybe they just need something that's more intense, an intense form of training, and showing them that they're capable of doing this, okay? And that through this, over a period of time, they'll be able to achieve their dream body. So we're just consistently showing and showing and showing up. That's it. We need to show up for our story. We can't simply just say or write a new story, right? It's two elements, very important that we don't miss that.
so this is interesting. You mentioned The Secret. This is something that
Mm-hmm.
I think is done really well for people. Like it's really
Mm-hmm.
helping people's mind. But I also, at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, think it's, from my observation, has harmed people in the same way. From this part that you're talking about here, like
Mm-hmm.
the action to support instead of just sitting there. What
Exactly.
other elements do you think The Secret is missing that people just read the book and think that they can just kind of be passive in their life to get the results? Is there any other components that come to mind?
I can't remember. I read that book years ago, but I know that one thing that I've discovered over the years is that action, action is what you need to take to achieve anything, right? You can't grow a tree without taking action. We can't get to a place without taking action. We can't even get out of bed if you don't take the step to get out of bed, right? So you can lay there, oh, I'm out of bed, oh, I'm at the beach. No, you need to get out of bed and
Uh-huh.
get yourself to the beach. Action. So there is the manifesting part where you can say, you know what, I have the vision board, and all these things are true, right? Because we need to understand that whether you have a vision board, it's something that's in your eyes, in your face all the time. So it's reminding you of what you want. Okay, so that's important. Visualizing teaches your brain the importance of the thing that you want, okay, and how it basically links to what you want. And it helps you identify ways of getting what you want. Then the action part is the part of you taking action to get it. So, like I said, the secret is not a lie. Just that people stop short. They omit a really important element to that. Okay, we don't just manifest. Okay, manifest. Take action to manifest what you want out of life.
Hmm. And so, in terms of manifestation, how
Mm-hmm.
much do you use manifestation in your work and for your clients?
It depends once again on the individual client. So my sessions are all customized based on the individual. So I don't um, try to insert my beliefs on my client because some of them are maybe more faith-based. Some of them need to tap into the darkness, because we know that, like you mentioned earlier, all high achievers have a story, right? Usually a dark story that pushed them. So sometimes we need to tap into that darkness as well. So it depends on what my client is struggling with, and I will obviously evaluate based on their goal and what area to push on, what particular tool to use to help them achieve that. But it all boils down to how we're going to fuel them to get to what they want, right? Like you said, you can
Mm-hmm.
everything in our life. The world produces. The world gives us everything we need to get what we want out of life, right? It's about us opening our eyes. It's about us saying, how do I change this to the fuel that I need? Okay, whether it's darkness, whether it's pain, that's everything you need, right? So it's always saying, you know what? Yes, I might not be getting the hand I want, but how can I become a master at winning with a hand that I'm dealt?
Mm-hmm. And I think you're a representation of that, where
Mhm.
where you've come out of. I mean,
Exactly.
I'm sure you're one in a very small few percentage that are doing
Hmm.
what you're doing.
Exactly.
Why do you think that is? Like, let's go a little bit deeper beyond your parents. Like, what do you think within you created that change?
So I will tell you, first of all, like I said, I've always been extremely compassionate, like growing up. Um, Seeing others not have, okay? First of all, I never always had, but yet my parents were able to give us sometimes. So whether it was a pair of shoes that I really wanted, the new shoes, sometimes I couldn't get it, sometimes I got it. But yet there were people who were worse off than us, right? So I've always been very compassionate. And I remember my mom telling me the story that one day I was probably like 5 or 6 years old. I was playing outside, and then this boy and his mother came, and they were like coming to ask for food in our neighborhood. And I was outside playing, and I went home, I brought them to my house, and I said, Mommy, can I please give this boy my shoes? And I took off the shoes that I had, and I gave it to the boy because he never had shoes on. And she told me the story. And that is just to show you that I've always had a heart of serving, of giving other people, right? But obviously, I believe that, it's important for us to step into the state that we need to be in order to get what we want. So I have a heart of giving. I just want to serve. I love, right? But I also know that I'm not oblivious to the fact that people will use you if you're only like that. So I always ask myself, how do I have to show up? Do I have to show up as a champion right here, right? And dominate because I can't go into that state, but I can also step into the state where I'm just love. I just want to love. I just want everybody to grow, to win. Okay. So it's about knowing that, like I said, I think that my entire upbringing has shaped me to become very compassionate, to have lots of love for other people. And I don't know if it comes from my genetics or where, but that's always my heart that I've had. I've always had a heart of serving. But like I said, my own challenges then shaped me, where I always reflected back on how I could overcome this. And I've had many challenges, whether it was me even losing weight, right? I was like 25 kilograms heavier. That's just when I came out of the whole depression stint after graduating university. I was about 20, 23, 24. And that's basically where everything started to change. 24, 25. I'm turning 32 now. So that is when things started to change for me, where I went back to university. I did my postgrad in psychology. I started my own cleaning business. I just started saying, you know what, I'm no longer waiting for people to give me opportunities. I'm going out and creating opportunities. Opportunities for my body, opportunities for my mind. And I immerse myself in the principles, the lessons of life. Okay. I just started reading and falling in love with reading. So I wouldn't say there's one specific thing that crafted the individual you see in front of you, but I would say, you know what, it's accumulation of things, accumulation of falls, accumulation of having a low self-esteem, of being bullied, accumulation of having to stand up for myself, of having to craft the person you see in front of you, accumulation of putting my head down in the books, trying to see what are the lessons of other people who've been through this. Okay. So like I said, it's been accumulation. It's just been a ride of me always trying to learn and gain. And that's basically it.
Man, there's so many things in there that you said are really interesting. Harnessing your darkness to fuel you, standing up for yourself because you're a compassionate person and having to be mindful of that, and looking into the principles that have gotten you, and like reading other people's principles. When you say harnessing your darkness, how can someone harness their darkness
We all
while
have
still
darkness.
in it?
While still in it, right? So the thing is that if you're still in your darkness, it's very important. Like if you're going through a really difficult time right now, it's very important for you to just, try to get out of a difficult time, because we know that when people are in a depressed state or like overly stressed, it's really hard for them to think about anything about the better tomorrow, right? So it's just important for them to take action in this moment. And sometimes it's okay to just be, instead of focusing on becoming. And that's also an important distinction that we should make, especially as high achievers, where we're always trying to become, like always chasing the next win. Sometimes it's okay to say, you know what, right now, this season requires me to just be, for me to be mindful, for me to be present, for me to be listening to what's happening around me, to learn, to gain, and then get ready, rejuvenated, renewed, and then you can go on again and become. So I think it's very important for people to distinguish where they are right now, realizing that it's only seasonal. Everything in life is seasonal, okay? But it's important for us to say, what am I doing during the season? Because what you do during the season will determine the outcome that you get. Okay, it will determine the results that you get. And many of us, when we are going through a season, a tough season, we put our heads down. Okay, we feel sorry for ourselves. We become the victim, and we keep that victim's mentality, and we carry it through even when we go into our next season. Instead of saying, you know what, I know that this difficult time is going to pass. Okay, difficulties happen to everyone, no matter who they are, no matter if they come from a silver spoon background, no matter if they had no money, no matter what it is. Okay, everybody faces difficulties and challenges. It's part of the human experience. So it's saying, you know what, I know that part of my experience is that I'm going to feel pain. I'm going to experience pain. Okay, but how do I not succumb to the pain? How do I not let the pain define me? How do I instead use the pain, okay, transmute the pain and turn the pain into my fuel to actually fuel me to become who I know I can become, or who I'm destined to become? Because there are so many people living life way below their potential simply because they are scared, right? They need that fuel. They need to tap into that fuel. So if they're going through a dark time right now, first of all, it's okay not to have all the answers. It's okay to feel sorry for yourself, okay? But just tell yourself, what is one step that you can take today to move forward, okay? Also acknowledging that this experience is not unique to you, okay? Everybody across the board experiences that. Then once again, understanding that it is seasonal, it will pass, okay? And keep looking out for the moment that's going to pass. Hold your head up and say, you know what can I do today to move me forward? That's it. One step forward, one step forward. That's it. Once you're able to see the light, then you're able to say, okay, now maybe I need a new plan or strategy to actually grow in the new season. But first, sometimes you have to be, depends on what season you're in. Okay.
I love that. I love
Mm-hmm.
that. That's such a good idea. Thinking about it in seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I had just achieved a certain level of a fitness goal that I've been working towards,
Mm-hmm.
and it required me to use like my yang energy. But since
Mm-hmm.
reaching the goal, I felt like, whoa, I need to now be in yin. So I need to be a little different body movements in my body right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you're talking about how you show up in the season. That's
Mm-hmm.
such a great way to look at it. So then, okay, how do we and how or what's your process? Say within you building your businesses. I mean, I'm sure you've had to overcome imposter syndrome and
Mm-hmm.
fear. So
Mm-hmm.
so say I'm in like a dark season, I see the light and I'm like, okay, that's the direction. But then the next little thing comes in is fear. What should I do to navigate this fear?
Fear is natural. Okay. All human beings experience fear once again. So it's first about you identifying, okay, what am I fearful about? How can I mitigate the risk? Because if we look at fear, right, what is fear trying to do? Fear is trying to protect us. That's it. Okay. The main purpose, or the primary reason that we are fearful is trying to protect us. And when we think about deep about what is it trying to protect, it's trying to ensure our survival, right? It's trying to ensure that we don't die. That's what fear is. Now, it's about you saying, okay, now that I acknowledge I'm feeling fear, what can I then do? Okay, or identify what am I fearful about? What is the worst case scenario? Okay, and am I comfortable with this, or how can I mitigate the risk? So you need to identify first of all what are you fearful about. Okay, what's the worst case scenario? Are you comfortable with the risk? Okay, or how can you mitigate the risk? Sometimes it could be, listen here, like you said, you're feeling imposter syndrome, having to do something, so you're fearful about that. In a sense like that, what's the worst case scenario, right? The worst case scenario is maybe, let's say, you not getting the clients if it's working with clients, right? Um, that's the worst case scenario. So what? Okay. So how do you mitigate the risk? How do you ensure that you are not as fearful when you go into that? How do you prevent that from happening? You could then say, okay, for me to prevent that is for me to practice beforehand. Okay. So that is preventing the risk. So it's identifying that is an irrational fear in a sense. Okay. That fear is not really keeping you alive. Okay. So there are fears that are trying to keep you alive. Some fears are trying to keep your ego alive. And it's important for us to also make the distinction there. the ego, our identity. Many times people are afraid to start a business simply because of the rejection they might face, right? That is a, that is the death of your ego, or the potential death of your ego. Oh, I want to be perceived as somebody who always gets things right, right? So
Mhm.
now I'm afraid of falling. I'm afraid of failing. No, it's okay. So if you can say, okay, what's the worst case scenario? Let's say I'm not losing all my money. Okay, I'm not investing, putting my house on the line, but just a small time investment, or a small financial investment that I'm making. And if I lose it, I'll still be okay, right? So now you can say, okay, so let's go. Because you can then say, oh, it's simply my ego, the death of the ego, okay, or the potential death of your ego. So it's also distinguishing what type of fear is it? Is it really a fear that's trying to keep us alive, right? Then identifying um, what is the cause of the fear, or how can you mitigate the risk. So yeah, that's in essence basically it. And like I said, there's always ways around that. How do you mitigate the risk?
I love how you say mitigate risk, because
Mm-hmm.
reward and risk are on the same
Mm-hmm.
plane, right? You can't get this
Exactly.
reward without taking this risk, but you can mitigate the
Exactly.
risk and like
Mm-hmm.
put the risk in these bite-sized chunks and break it down. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what would can you give us an example of a fear that you overcame, like one of the bigger fears that you've overcome, and then you've mitigated the risk to allow you to overcome it?
I would say one of the biggest fears that I had to overcome. I mean, there's plenty of fears, okay, right? You know that we are all conditioned. We are conditioned, and that the conditioning of our past experiences, our past faults, our past fails, that all shapes us, right? It all shapes our view of ourselves, but our view of the world as well. And that becomes like layers. We become like a layered onion where we need to peel it all away. So I've always been trying to peel away my fears right now. Now that I know that even I'm not going to die because of this. How can I overcome this, right? So, like I told you, the fear of public speaking. I knew that in my future, I wanted to, because if you're looking back, like I said, about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when this happened, um, I knew that someday I want to be able to speak to people, right? I didn't, I didn't know that I want to become a motivational speaker in the sense, or speak on stages, but I knew that I needed to be a competent speaker. So I decided that I wanted to start speaking better. Now, in terms of that, so let's look fast forward 5 years later when I actually did TEDx talk. That was the first real talk that I've done since then, right? Since my failed attempt at the scholarship opportunity. So how I mitigated that risk is simply practicing, right? I practiced, and I had to face a lot of blocks beforehand because I promise you, there were times where I think it was a month before where I was like, okay, I'm doing this. Now I took about, out of the entire month, I took about almost 3 weeks to write up my talk. Because I would write up something, no, this is not good enough. Write up something, no, this is not good enough, right? Because obviously that shows that I was trying to, I was seeking the perfection in a sense because I was afraid, right? And many of us are like that, where oh, this business plan is not perfect. No, next one, no, it's not perfect. Until I was like, okay, now I'm under pressure, time pressure, because I need to get this done, because I need to be able to practice the speech beforehand. And I think it was last week, all I did was practice. And like I said, that was the first time I actually went onto a stage and spoke. But I could feel, like I said, before that, the week, the weeks leading up to that, there was actually a moment where I actually experienced anxiety, right? An anxiety attack, and I don't get that. Um, um, I I can't recall a time where I've ever had an anxiety attack. Maybe the last I could probably be when I was depressed in my early 20s. So I was practicing for the speech and trying to get the things, everything perfect. And then I was looking at the speaker lineup, and I was like, oh my word, these people, like I started, the imposter syndrome. Oh my word, steps in. These people are so more well known. They are all like these really good speakers and all these things. And I just got overshadowed by doubt and anxiety. And immediately my heart rate started pumping. And I was like, I slowed down, I breathed, and I remind myself, I took myself out of my own shoes and reminded myself that it's okay, right? I know what I'm experiencing right now. Breathe, let it go. And obviously it didn't last long. It lasted a couple of seconds. But that was just an indication of, the barriers I had to face trying to overcome this fear. And I knew I was ready. But sometimes the mind plays tricks on us. So that is one of the fears that I had to overcome as well, that I would say one of the biggest fears. But on the day when I went out, I was ready. I was ready for battle. I was ready for battle.
And how did it go? How
It
did
went
you do?
well. It went well. Obviously, looking back today, I can see there are areas where I could have done even better. But for that time, it was excellent, right? Today, I would be even better, but that was for that time.
What would you do differently now?
When I do have an opportunity, I would be a better storyteller. I'll try to tell stories more, right? Because the audience connects with stories. So that's very important. So that's what I've learned since then. Whereas I was just, I was just telling them like basically information and things. Whereas I would try to connect more with the audience first through story. So that's what I would do differently this time around. I mean, even my story, the fact I would even brought up my story that I was afraid of public speaking, but me standing there is an indication of what you can do. You understand?
I think you would have really connected to the audience with that. I feel
Mm-hmm.
connected to you from that, because you're talking me through the experience. I can just imagine what is happening, because I mean that's one of our human fears. Basic fear is public speaking.
Yes,
it's a common fear from a
exactly.
lot of us. So at some point too, I plan to go on stage as well. So it's always good to have like ideas and things. What advice could you give me to having my first speech on stage?
I would definitely say like connecting with the audience, right? Very important storytelling. So, like storytelling is a way that you connect with people because that's how we connect with. That's why stories are so important in our lives, and even our narrative is a story, right? Everything's a story. So, just trying to craft a story that really connects with the individual, connects with the people in there, and I think that's one of the most important things that I would definitely say when you are speaking from stage. But
Did
also,
you
great way to practice is attend the Toastmasters.
did you do that? Did you practice
I
at
did.
Toastmasters?
I went to some events. I probably went to like 4 Toastmasters meetings. Yeah, but that's what I said. I haven't really put a lot of practice into my public speaking per se, like directly. But I've put a lot of practice into me as an individual, knowing that because obviously now that I mean, my background is understanding the individual, right? Understanding the mind, understanding the person, understanding fears. So I could then look at myself and see like where my fear of public speaking stemmed from. It stemmed from the fact that I saw myself as being inferior. And that's why I wasn't able to speak in front of all those executives, right? I saw myself as being less than they were, understand? I had a low self-esteem. I was overweight, all those things, right? So that was the reason I could not really speak. I felt like my English was broken. Yeah, it might have not been perfect, but nobody's perfect. So embrace your imperfections is another thing that I would also say. So yeah, so those are key takeaways that I use. So I didn't specifically work on my speaking, but I specifically worked on my mind.
So now that you and I are both into the mindset world,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think? Let's say someone, I know this is again case by case, but just bringing in a generality so we can talk to hit a broader audience. What do you think are some basic things someone can do to start enhancing their mind or their mindset? So they say like, I'm a negative thinker, this and that. What can they do?
Yeah. So first of all, if you're a negative thinker, it's very important for you to then start reconfiguring your mind, okay? And the way you can do that, first of all, gratitude helps with that, right? And gratitude is very essential because it takes us out of our own, okay? Because we are always living life through our own eyes, okay? Through our own experience. And ultimately, no matter how great we think we are, okay? No matter if we think the world revolves around us, it doesn't, right? We'll fall dead tomorrow and a week later, everybody forgotten about us. Life would have gone on. So we need to realize that, life is no matter. I saw this quote not too long ago. Even the longest life is only a short ride, right? It's a short ride, because so we need to acknowledge that we get an opportunity to be on this planet, right? We need to acknowledge that we have food. Even if life is not perfect, even if you hate your job, at least you have an income. There are people who don't. So gratitude, firstly, that's the very first thing I would say. And then I would say, trying to reconfigure your mind is read. Okay. So it's important what you're filling your mind with, whether it's reading, whether it's podcasts like this. Okay. So it's trying to say, how can I gain more insight from people who are inspirational, who are different? Because if I'm only going to consume the things that I am consuming, whether it is the negative news, listening to your friends, and I mean, like I told you, it's easy for people to fall victim like that. You understand? If everybody around us is negative, it's easy. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I complain because just work again, or this is that. Everybody want to see who's the best complainer. Okay, so try to remove yourself from that and try to say, you know what? Does this serve me? This one question I always use with my clients is, does this serve me? And what I mean by that is, how does this serve me to become what I want? Okay. Or to become what I need to become, or achieve what I need to achieve. So we all have a vision. And if your vision is your North Star, you can always say, how does it serve me? If you are being around negative people, does it serve you? Or doesn't it serve you? If it doesn't serve you, you need to move away from it, right? So it's always saying, how can this? So it's about using everything once again to always move you towards what you want, your North Star.
And so I think we've covered a lot of topics here, but then this just
Mm-hmm.
comes to my mind, and I'd love to know your take on it. What's your take on how your thoughts create your reality?
So thoughts create your reality. If we look back at there's one core framework in psychology, right? I think it's behavioral theory that speaks about basically a thought, right? Our thoughts produce our emotion, which then produces our action, right? So it's thought, feeling, action. So if we think about it in this particular framework, if I wake up Monday morning and I'm like, it's work. Oh my word. Now I have to go again and see all these people and deal with this lousy boss. What happens? Those thoughts come to your mind. What happens? Now you're going to start having those feelings that's associated with those types of thoughts, right? You're going to start feeling, oh, I don't want to get out of bed. I wish it was still weekend. You get what I'm trying to say? What type of action are you going to take? You're not going to take an empowered action. You're not going to get out of bed and say, start dancing and being happy. No, you're going to get out of bed and drag your feet and I'm moody. That's basically, in essence, an example of how our thoughts create our reality. So we need to be aware of the things that we are thinking. We need to be aware of the things that we are saying, because all of it creates the framework for our action, our feeling and our action. So if you are always constantly thinking about how unfortunate life is, okay, um, or how you are victim to all these unfortunate realities and why life is unfair to you, if you're always thinking those types of thoughts, right, you're never going to take action. And that's why people always say, you know what, you need to step out of a victim's mindset. What does a victim's mindset mean? It means that our thoughts are predominantly um, about us being in an unfavorable position, right? About life treating us unfairly, about people treating us unfairly. So we're the victim. So if life is always treating you unfairly, it means that you are feeling that way. And if someone keeps doing something to you that you consider not fair, you're not going to take action to really challenge that person. Yes, you might just shout, why are you doing this? But you're not going to say, you know what? How can I actually stand up and rise above this? Okay. You're just going to be shouting, stop being unfair, stop being unfair, stop being unfair. And that's what we see around us in the world all the time. Stop it with this, stop it with this. Everybody complaining, right? But if we look at it, that's why we say, you know what? Move away from the victim's mindset. Try to move into a growth approach, or try to move into, a victim's mindset, where you're going to say, you know what? I'm claiming victory over this, right? Now, if you claim victory over it, where you say that in spite of those things happening, and very similar to what I told you earlier, where the hardships that I faced, where I had to go in and present to those for that scholarship. In the same way, I could have been like, it's so unfair. Why nobody's giving me an opportunity, right? But instead, I changed my mind about it. I saw it as, you know what, it's my responsibility. So if we can also take responsibility for our lives, for where we at in life, even if it is not our fault, that then gives us power, right? Because it now provides us power. When you have responsibility, it means that you can take action to change something. But if you don't have the responsibility, you can't take no action to change it. It's not in your hands, okay? So that's why it's important for us to say, you know what, our thoughts should be around how am I responsible for this, or how can I take responsibility for this, even if it's not solely your responsibility. And then you can then have the feelings about how can I show up and change this? And then obviously your action just obviously align with that. I hope it
Wow.
explains the
Oh, it does, and that's
action.
why that's why I knew to ask you, because I had a feeling you'd have a good answer. That's
Mhm.
really good. Before we come to the end of our podcast here, Kyle, is there anything else on your heart that you'd like to share that we haven't talked about today?
Nothing that I can think about this right now, but like, I just want people to be aware that, you know what, they can conquer whatever's in their way, okay? That it's our mind. Our mind is designed to keep us safe, okay? And our mind, like I said earlier, whether it is through fear, it's trying to keep us alive. That's the sole purpose of our mind. And when we are in a state of comfort, right, it's, it's perceived as us being safe. So that's why it's easy for us to be comfortable. It's easy for us to be safe. But to realize that, you know what, nothing's going to grow, okay, in your safe zone. You need to get out there. You need to keep challenging your old belief patterns. You need to keep challenging the old limits that you have, because you only have this one ride at life, this one chance at life. So it's important for you to rise up, for you to become all that you can and go after the life that you deserve, okay? Because there's so much out there for you, and there's so many people who's waiting for you, but you need to take it on your own shoulders and say, you know what, even though I don't know everything right now, even though I don't have everything sorted out, I'm going to take the first step in the direction of becoming my best. And I'm going to find all the resources to become my best. Because even if it takes a lifetime, it's my lifetime. I'm sacrificing this lifetime to achieve the life that I deserve, okay? And help those who's waiting for me. So in essence, that's what I'll leave people with. Realize that you, the possibility exists for you. There's so many possibilities that exist for you. Stop buying into um, a life of average, or stop buying into this is enough, or I can't do anymore. Okay, stop buying into I can't, because if you really want, you can do anything you want to, even if it means you fail a million times, even if it means you have to find somebody to help you with it. There's always ways to achieve what you really, really want. So you need to take responsibility for that and say, how can I? So that is
I
to conclude.
love that, man. Hey, 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 hey.
Yeah, sorry, it's just I know it's a mouthful, but a quick free flow for you.
No, I appreciate it, man. I'm soaking it all in. I'm like,
Mhm.
nice, yes, yes, yes. I agree. I echo exactly what you say, and I support it, and I feel the same way, man. And
Yeah.
I wanna leave here with nothing left in the tank. You know, I wanted to give it
Hmm.
my all and know that I really seized every opportunity that I could. So I support you and I
Awesome.
appreciate you. Um, so what I do with all my guests at the end of the show is I just ask a couple of questions,
Hmm.
and they just about 2 to 3 sentences. So, what's your most gifted book that you
Hmm.
give to people?
The greatest salesman in the world. The greatest salesman in the world. I'm not
The,
sure it's OG something, the author, but it's one of my all-time favorites. I'll definitely recommend you get that, even if just the audio.
the greatest
Amazing book.
salesman in the world.
Hmm.
Okay. And so let's say you could go to Bangkok and there was
Hmm.
a billboard and you
Hmm.
could get this one quote out or this message out in front of 1 million people and they'd see it daily. What would that message be?
Hmm. Wow. I'll probably be like, it's greatest inside of you. Take a step to
Mm.
unlock it.
Ooh.
Yeah. Because many of us have given up. We've sold out on the
Mm.
greatness inside of us, right? Many of us. And I truly believe that every single human being on this earth has an amazing potential inside of him. And I see it a lot because I can see into people's potential. And that's a gift that I've honed obviously over the years of working with people. And a lot of people don't believe in themselves. And sometimes it's just about getting a nudge in the right direction. And I'm here to tell people today that if I can do it, right? Because I believe in myself, then you can, right? You can rise to whatever you want to. I mean, I gave you a brief background of my life. That's just a brief background, but I mean, it's been filled with many, many challenges, right? Many adversities. And like I told you, the majority of people don't make it out of there. They don't make it out of the wood. they don't make it out of the ghetto. That's it. So I'm telling you that the possibilities that exist for you is endless. But it's about you. It's about you saying, how do you step? How do you take the step to actually turn your obstacles that's in front of you right now into your opportunities? And how do you rise to becoming the best version of yourself, the best person, and really step into your full potential?
I would read that sign every day. I'll walk by it just to read that sign. And Kyle, in the last 6 months, what's a new habit you've acquired that's positively benefited your life?
Wow, in the last 6 months, I'm trying to think now. In the last 6 months, I think, when I made a distinction about being and be, right? I think in the last 6 months, I really made that distinction where it was important for me to be. Maybe not in the last 6 months, because I think that this last 6 months would be the start of the year. But I would say in the last 12 months that I realized that it's important to just, I created a distinction between be and becoming. Because like I said, high achievers, me especially as well, like you constantly fuel to achieve the next goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes in life, like I tell you, depending on the season you're in, sometimes you just need to take a step back and just need to be, right? You need to allow yourself to be, allow yourself to feel sorry for yourself, allow yourself to grow from the things that you learn or that you've been through. So I can't leave you with that without giving you a little brief background into why I say that. So my father passed away last year in August, right? So that has been an extremely challenging or difficult time for me, in essence. So that's the first time, obviously, I lost somebody really close to me. And I think that was one of the things that made me say that it's okay to just slow down. It's okay to acknowledge that you're in a different season of your life right now. And that season taught me lots of things. Like I say, every hardship brings with it the equal seed of opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And going into that already, I could already say, you know what, I know what some of the gifts are that I'm getting from this. Even though I would trade them any day for my father, but I still know what some of the gifts are. And one of the gifts is the fact that I knew it's going to make me a more compassionate individual because I'm truly experiencing what it is to lose somebody to love, right? And it's truly allowing me to connect with death, to awaken to my mortality, right? Because that's one thing people go through life expecting never to die, right?
Yes.
And it's unfortunate that sometimes somebody close to you have to die in order for you to really wake up that, you know what, our time's ticking away. But like I say, it's also a gift. And also the gift is like really connecting to the pain. And that pain is important. First of all, like I told you, pain can fuel you, but also pain is part of the human experience. So I'm on this human experience like you are, and I need to allow myself to feel as well. And it's through feeling and really going deep into it and really understanding it that I can get the lessons. And these lessons, they make me a stronger leader. It helps me to really serve people at a different level. And I mean, I've helped many people who've been struggling with their own challenges in terms of losing people. Since then, simply because I had this new perspective of losing someone you love, the pain associated with it, and how hard it is. Okay, so that I could only get because I went through it. So that is an example of why I spoke about becoming and being. And like I said, the last 12 months, that's something that I slowed down, right? Because I needed to take my foot off the gas. I needed to allow myself to just be instead of focusing on becoming, right? And very essential. But like I said, sometimes it's okay to just be in the season you are in. Get the lessons because every season gives us lessons. Okay, allow it to refine you. Don't let it define you, but allow it to refine you. Allow it to refine your character. Allow it to refine your perspective of life. Okay, and then saying, okay, how can I move forward? How can I use this to fuel me? Okay, to go to the next level, serve people.
I love it.
Yeah.
I actually just did a post today on failure doesn't define you, it refines you. They're just constantly
Awesome.
these pains are it's
Exactly.
we put labels to them and we let them define us, but they're actually a constant refining process, shaping our character.
Exactly.
So
Everything is shaping our experience of life.
well, yeah, absolutely. It's been well, Kyle, it's been an absolute pleasure. I feel like I don't need to watch my daily dose of YouTube motivation today. It's been awesome, man. I can really feel your
You're welcome.
passion and I'm sure
Welcome.
all the powerful transformations you're facilitating for the world. So for anyone listening or watching this, how can they connect with you?
They can connect with me on Instagram, right? I think it's at Coached Success. Yeah, I think that is my Instagram, or coached_success. I also have a podcast. So it's coachedsuccess.com/podcast. So that's the main ways, but they can also connect with me on, I have a YouTube channel and I have a Facebook group and page. So Coach Success on all platforms in essence. And that's
Amazing.
COACHED.
Edie.
Coached. Yeah. Success.
Okay. Amazing. Well, Kyle, thanks so much. And for the listeners, this was another episode of Inside Mentors Minds. Take care, everyone.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt.